Hi everyone. Today I have Loreal with me, Loreal Jordan. She is doing amazing work on the insurance, and while I am speaking to you, I'm actually on her LinkedIn profile. And she is the award winning senior executive at Sutherland Insurance TPA. And if I go to her LinkedIn profile, I just love the heading that we make digital human. That's like amazing. That is the first thing that's like summarizes her complete portfolio, I think, in that line. So I will stop a while and I will ask L'Oreal Jordan to introduce herself. And so you everybody knows me, I guess. If not, I'll just introduce a little bit myself before I give it to L'Oreal. So my name is Niti. I am founder of MedML. MedML is the very first underwriting platform created by the actuaries. I'm an actuary, so I am one of the person who helped the team in creating the platform for the insurance companies. So enough of me and L'Oreal. It's all yours.
Well, thanks, Niti. As you said, I'm Loreal Jordan. I'm the Insurance TPA Officer and Solutions Lead here at Sutherland Global. I've been in the industry for almost 30 years, so I'll show my age, and started out in the mailroom actually and worked through all areas of operations and was an underwriting case manager, spent time in claims, reinsurance, contact center, back office, transformation, you name it. Um, this is my third company as a TPA that I've worked for, and I've been here about a year and a half at Sutherland. And as she said, our header is "We Make Digital Human," and that is our philosophy. We are really focusing on how we can digitalize and automate all the legacy processes in the insurance space while keeping the human in the loop, so that human can be there for not only the connection and building the trust, focusing on the more complex tasks and the work that a human really needs to have their eyes on. So that's really our philosophy as we build our solutions, and every carrier we work with, we want to make it a digital atmosphere where the human is in the loop where it needs to be.
And I want to elaborate more on the underwriting and the need for the high time. I would say the high time for the digitization. Everything is digitized. I don't know why insurance is still stuck there. I really do not know. So I will tell you that when I used to work in the insurance companies as an employee, and when I started the company, I thought that the time must have changed. People must have got the innovation. But to my surprise, it is still the challenges which are there. But I would love to hear from you, because you come with such an extensive experience, that what are the challenges that you think the underwriting process currently has? Why do you think that there is manual, and if manual, then why not any changes have not been done so far?
Oh, absolutely. And, I can talk to that part too. When I started, everything was paper. We used to push the paper back around the offices in little carts and deliver the mail like the original applications for issuing. And then, we would create paper files for underwriting and case management. And, we've gone paperless. Most companies have. There's still a lot of paper out there. They'll say they're paperless, but there's still a lot of paper. Um, but I think part of it is risk aversion, and I think part of it is this is the way we've always done it, and cost. The cost to transform and completely redo your systems into a digital. And there's so much legacy systems out there that going away from the way they've always done it is the common mentality I see when we talk to people about how we could solution from them. I mean, the challenges are out there, and especially in the underwriting space. There's complex risk assessment with the diverse risk profiles. Especially in the group in the commercial space. There's so many different variables that fall into that for underwriting. They have to have so many different hats they wear, as I'll say it. That depending on what they're underwriting for that day, what group it is. It's there's the size of the group, the industry that the group is in, what their ages are, what the parameters are. There's no cookie cutter methodology or mentality out there for risk assessment. And then, staying on risk, another challenge is emerging risks, cyber threats. I can't tell you how many. I think we all have policies at our companies, wherever, where we have to do the phishing scam test, and if you fail or not, but there's so many more than that. I've received emails that totally look like they're from my CEO saying they need me to do something. I've received other things trying to get into my secured network. There's so many cyber risk out there, and it's scary. Identity theft, identity fraud, all of it, and then trying to get into somebody who works in. I mean, I have access to a ton of private information that's secured within my security parameters, but if I get hacked, you know, people's information can be out there, and privacy is such a big deal in the industry right now. So I think those two things are two big things. I talked a little bit about the group dynamics, and you know, you can have a group of employees that are going to be covered under, we'll say health insurance. And that group is so variant. I mean, it could be people starting out their careers in their early 20s to people ending their careers like me in their 50s. And, you have to be able to combine and assess all of that risk together, and come up with a great actuary model. You're smiling and nodding because you're the actuary to model your products so they're profitable, and still, kind of conserve that risk. So I
Yeah.
think that's a lot in there.
And
Um,
I will just add before you take on to 2 points: identity theft and cyber risk that you just said. And then, secondly, coming to the health insurance, or I think why they, like you rightly said, I think the systems are still legacy based because it is very complicated. And even a lot of times, I feel you are right. Within the companies itself. So, for example, there are actuaries, there are underwriters. Actuaries don't see eye to eye with the underwriters, they don't agree on a lot of terms, and then there's a business team who wants innovation. So I think in insurance specifically, you're right, the complexity is very intense, and because of that, innovation is challenging, and I do agree to that.
oh, absolutely. I have a colleague, just like you said, we were at a conference together, and we took a picture, and I said, I went to tag you in it and it won't let me tag you or post on your page. And she was like, yeah, somebody stole my LinkedIn identity and
Oh
was
my
reaching out to all my connections and
god.
trying to get them for business connections. I was like, are you kidding me? And she was like, no. And I was like, that's just crazy. And so, yeah. And I mean, the other point you made is underwriters and actuaries, and then you bring claims professionals in there too. It's something I've said throughout my career because I've done both roles. I've been in underwriting and I've been in claims. Is they really need to sync up better, because taking the data you gather from your claims staff and meshing that with underwriting can help you model your product so much better. And there's all sorts of scenarios and things that come out, that are the one-offs and the unexpecteds, but primarily you can model, your death ratios, your claim ratios, your disability, and all of that fairly close, by just using your data and analytics. But that brings me up to another challenge that we have: data quality and availability, because there's so many legacy systems and
Yeah,
paper
and
files
I
out there that were scanned in. And
But I will just add there. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you, but I'll just add there that even if the data is limited, or even I do understand that we are talking about AI models, but we can do handshakes. We can have an actual blended AI model, because that can be done, because we have done it in our company. But so I think that is something that is very, very, then the whole burden is not on the data scientists and the AI, artificial intelligence. It's like we're all coming together, everybody's coming together, the underwriters, their business decisions, because they take some business decisions, the strategic decisions that they take. So it's like the human, which is having intense years of experience, and then you feed in that experience into the machine, and then we all come together to do the innovation. So I just wanted to add that we should not only put the spotlight on artificial intelligence or the machine learning models, and saying that machine learning models are not performing good. It's a machine, it can never perform good until unless and human intervention is blended into it. That's what I
oh,
feel.
absolutely. Oh, I
Yeah.
completely agree with you. And I mean, then the collaboration, you've got to bring everybody to the table and feed that. I've got 30 years in the industry, and, we joke all the time that when I retire, who's going to inherit what's in my head? And,
Yeah.
and that's
And
very
that's
common with
valuable.
where with a lot of carriers we go and sit with the industry is aging out. It's something we've said. I did a panel last year at a claims conference called Bringing Sexy Back, how to um, bring the next generation into the insurance industry, because when you talk to youngsters, one, they want a digital experience. Two, they want to feel like their work has meaning and purpose, and they don't want to just sit there and be data entry and bored, and they want to feel like they're doing something to contribute, they're doing a good job, and they have the tools that they need to do that. And so, that was one of the big things we talked about at that roundtable, was like, how do we do that? And technology is the key,
Yeah.
because I have 4 grown children, and I tell them all the time, they're like, your job's boring, mom. And I'm like, it's not boring. It really isn't. But, it sounds like it. And, insurance as a whole has such a negative reputation in the industry of, we just take people's money, we don't pay their claims. And, when you're really involved in it, that's not true. It's
Yeah.
just some of those one-off cases and the one-off complaints. And,
Yeah.
what you said about the machine learning and the collaboration two coming together, it's absolutely right. I mean, if we take what all of us have in our heads and, these handwritten processes and procedures for the legacy applications that sit on some people's desktops. They're not in a shared repository anywhere. And we start with that aspect and bringing it all together. I mean, we can take 10 employees that have 30 years of experience, their knowledge, their processes, their handwriting notes, dump it into a data lake and really come out with something magic if,
Yeah.
people just take the time and make the investment to do so.
And I would like to just highlight here, because I have a work when I was like working in the insurance companies, like a junior actuary. So you are right. A lot of times I have come across, and I will definitely name some people out. They can totally relate what you're trying to tell me, that or tell to everybody, that your mind is actually a machine in its own way. You are a running predictive model. And I'm very very sure that if I will just give one policy to you or one insurance in the region, you will tell the premium. You don't need the data, because that's the experience, and it will be very very accurate. So that needs to get blended. That's what I feel. But yes, you're right. People like you are actually walking models. I would say.
I'm going to use that now. I am my own large language model. So, and see how they take that. Um, I think the last challenges that I really want to bring up and highlight is regulatory and compliance. It is such a ever changing landscape out there in regulatory. I handle our licensing and our regulatory compliance here at my company now. And I mean, every day there's a new regulation, or there's a new this or a new rule or a new law. And then, bring in moratoriums and catastrophic things, just like, the hurricane that happened here in Kentucky 2 weeks ago. You know, you bring all that in, and all that has to be fed in as well. And, you have to, it's a full-time job for one person, but I keep telling everybody who'll listen around me, we can truly use AI and a lot of these models to help us finagle, understand, and consolidate all of these regulations and compliance requirements into one place where it's understandable, and you don't have to have all these different opinions. Because I get a new regulation, we're a third party administrator, so we don't make the decision. We go back to our client. We give them our interpretation and how we believe it should be managed. Then it goes to them, and then their operations has to look at it, their legal has to look at it, their compliance has to look at it, and then they come back and tell us how it's applicable. And I will tell you, every carrier we service will look at the very same regulation and find it applicable in different ways. So there's no standardization. And that makes it very hard in the industry, depending on, which carrier or which block you're working on, it could be viewed very differently. And so it's very challenging in the underwriting space, in the claim space, and in the entire insurance space, because it's all dependent on how those regulations and rules are interpreted.
So I would love to hear from you one like example where you thought that it came to a bottleneck, and you thought that the current system, if we don't change it, will we cannot survive. So we always talk about okay, like in Hindi we say it like chalta hai attitude, which is like more like okay, I'm fine. The process is going on very good since 30 years. No cyclone is happening. Nothing will collapse. But if you can give us one example where you felt okay, now current system cannot sustain, and if we don't change, and if we don't do the innovation, uh, things will not happen. So why, I mean, that example, that is something that if you could pick up one thing that will really help me or us,
Oh,
everybody.
I think one of the biggest things, and it's starting to really take traction now in the industry, is when you're doing medical underwriting, when it's not just straight through processing and you actually have to go out and get medical documentation because they could be rated or scored or even a high risk policy. There's select issue and policies out there that will insure higher risk people that have heart disease problems or high blood pressure or some chronic condition, such as diabetes. Back in the day, those would be straight denials, because, the premium is not going to work it. They're more of a high risk. But now we've come up with ways to rate them and score them and make our pricing model. But when it comes to an underwriter's desk and they've got that medical underwriting to do, I mean, attending physician statements, script checks, and all that, sometimes those could be 400 or 500 pages long,
Yeah.
and to go through that and find the details and decipher a doctor's handwriting and scribbled notes is so difficult. And I mean, and that's the underwriter's job, because if they miss something, then they could improperly rate the policy, not being paid enough, small things like that. And so one of the things that we've applied is taking all that medical records and summarizing it, letting a machine do the summarization and giving bullet points and scoring it and rating it based off of what's in that document, where before a human actually had to go through page by page and do that. That was a big bottleneck, and that was one of the reasons underwriters, when something had to go through medical underwriting, they spent a lot of time, and it caused the time from application to issue to go a lot longer and stretch it out, because I remember back in my day getting an 800-page APS. I worked on the select issue team, which was the higher risk cases. And I literally had to go through page by page and summarize and look for things, or try and catch, if they prescribe this medication that's for diabetes. And, one, if you don't understand the lingo and the terminology, it can be difficult for you. Two, like I said earlier, the handwriting can be very hard to decipher. And three, there's such a level of fear that you're going to miss something and issue something incorrectly, that the stress and all of that. And so the summarization and the ability to extract, summarize, rate, and score is one of the things that I really see taking off in the underwriting space, to eliminate that and add to much more straight through processing. And there's guaranteed issue products out there, but the majority of them are not guaranteed issue. And so to find things that will help that underwriter get through that caseload, and that's one of the things that I think the agents and the brokers look at too. They don't want to submit an application and wait 3 weeks to get an answer. They want to book that business, get their commissions, and move on. And so finding ways to expedite the process in the beginning to get that policy to issue is I think been one of the biggest backlogs and problems.
You're right, and I do agree to that. And I think nowadays, even the requirements. So, for example, in the employer and individual point of view, when I see the schemes, the request that in request for quotation that is coming up, they're also coming up very complicated. So, one employer will ask you multiple options or multiple permutation and combinations to fit to their budget. And like you rightly said, that we have always have an opportunity cost. So I have so many documents to look into, maybe not documents, even if it is very very advanced and I do have everything in my Excel, or if I do have some softwares that do still doing the cleaning, I do need technology where it summarizes and tell me, give me the output, and from there I start my brain. And Because specifically when we are submitting tenders, you are rightly in saying there as well that specifically when we are doing the pricing, when we are doing the ratings, etc., we are doing many calculations as an underwriter. If I put myself as an underwriter shoe, so we are doing many calculations and we are getting approvals from many people within the organization. So that process needs to get streamlined, and wherever possible, if an automation or a helping hand is provided through technology, it's a smarter move. I mean, it's more of a smarter decision rather than being stubborn and saying, okay, I'm fine, everything is going good, I can manage it, I can still go in through some excels. But it's a smarter move to take use of the technology and then focus on maybe 10 more cases or 10 more requests that are coming your way than just focusing on the one or two in that day, particular day. I do agree to that.
Absolutely. So,
So it's more on the speed in addition to the accuracy, definitely. And I'm not saying that humans are not accurate. We have been doing it since I don't know how many years, since I think insurance was born. So everything was is being doing good. So I don't think so humans do mistakes, because we do have a cycle of peer checking and many other things. But I do agree that it is kind of like an helping hand and bringing out the efficiency.
oh yeah,
Cool.
definitely. Quality too. I mean, when you can have a machine go behind somebody and check that quality, and like you said, we've been doing it for a long time as humans, but we're fallible. We make mistakes. We mistype something. We read something wrong. Especially if you've got a lot of pressure and demand on you to get through 20 cases a day or to do this. Sometimes you can miss something, and so having that machine assist, just like you said, behind you to review and summarize and do what you did, gives you more confidence too to continue to learn more and continue to see more and do more. So I think it's all one big package. I think it's technology, humans, and innovation all rolled up together is where our industry is going to go and is going.
So now I will come to the closer point, and I will just ask you two questions on that. Okay. So the first question I would like to ask you is that you see so many innovation. I'm sure you see so many young people coming up doing some innovation so far. Is there any particular, you may not have to name it, but do you feel that the younger generation or people like us who are taking the collar up and bringing that innovation into the floor are doing their job properly, or you feel that startups in general are not bringing good solutions onto the table?
Oh no, absolutely. The insure tech, I'll call it the insurtech revolution, and the startups, they've changed our industry so much in just the last 5 years alone. I mean, just seeing, and they're bringing a different perspective to it. They're looking at the processes and going, oh my gosh, why are you doing it like this? And bringing a different lens to it. I think without the startups and without the insurtechs out there, we would still be struggling. I think our industry is very set in their ways and slow to change and slow to grow, and bringing in, this younger, new, fresh perspective. And I hate saying younger because it's not really an age thing, but bringing in this new perspective is, I mean, every day I'm amazed. Every conference I go to, I watch the pitch decks and I watch this, and I mean, they're just really focusing, and I think they're specializing, in underwriting or in claims or in payment services, um, in areas where they see the pain points at, and trying to really add the efficiencies there and specializing. And so, I mean, here at Sutherland, we specifically partner with a lot of people to build our ecosystem, because we don't want to own it all, because we're not experts in everything, but we definitely want to partner with people who have that insight, that continuous improvement mindset, innovation. How can we make it better without adding, a ton of cost, because everybody has budgetary restraints as well. And so I think it's just revolutionized the industry completely.
And the second question that, and so firstly, thank you. I will be the representative face of all the insurtech, although not fair, but still. And I'll say thank you. And then secondly, I would like to ask you that do you think that this revolution is a threat to any kind of a threat to whether the humans or the opportunities, etc., in terms of the work?
I laugh at that all the time. When people start saying the robots are going to take my job, I just look at them and go, there's not a robot that will have, I'll give an example of a claims examiner. When I was in SIU, I did investigations and all that. You have this sixth sense, the hair stands up in the back of your neck. Something just doesn't seem right. I can't tell you how much fraud in my claims aspect of my career that I caught just because of that intuition or knowing, and that can't be taught. The same in underwriting. You can't take that human element away. A machine can't give
I agree.
compassion. A machine can't give empathy and build trust and do all those things. The human connection is so valuable. I mean, because that's what our industry is about. It's protecting human assets and protection for your family. It's about wealth protection. It's about securing your future. The robots are not going to take away your job. They're going to make your job better and easier so you can be better at your job. And I laugh every time people say that. Will they reduce some of the jobs out there? Absolutely. But it will give the people with the experience and the knowledge and the wisdom in our industry the opportunities to do more, to be a bigger voice, and to be more proactive in helping with claims workflows or underwriting or coming up with the solutions. Half of the solutions I've found in my life are by sitting at the table with the people who actually do the work and listening to them and watching what they do and seeing how we can make that better. So you can't there's nothing you can do with a machine or robot or anything that will replace that.
I agree. And it's glad that somebody has the same thought process like me. It's a machine, god damn it. You can switch it off whenever you want.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I do agree to that. All right, Laurel. So I'll be respectful of your time and thank you so much for sharing your insights. And
Oh, thank you for having
any,
me.
yes, of course, any last thoughts that you would like to address to people, we would love to hear.
I think my last thought is get on board. There's so much resistance to change and fear of change in our industry and a lot of the industries. It's coming. It's happening. Get on board. I've spent time taking courses, learning about AI, learning about processing, about large language models, about agentic AI, and doing that so I can better speak to it. And don't reside in a place of fear. Get on board and see how we can make everything better with this. And that's my 2 cents. So,
Thank you. And anybody who wants to reach out to L'Oreal, please reach out to her on LinkedIn. She is, I think, very much available there. And yeah, so, and you can reach out to me also. I can pass on the message if you have anything specific. Okay, so thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Thank you for listening to us and have a great day ahead. Bye.
bye, everybody. Thank you.